The way my nephew Marcus looked at me across that mahogany desk, it was a mixture of pity and smug triumph that you usually only see in movies. He was leaning back in his chair, his hands laced behind his head, looking at my office like it was a museum of ancient history. He told me I was obsolete, a word that tastes like ash when it's spat at you by a kid whose diapers you used to change. He thought he'd pulled off the heist of the century, walking out with my entire digital Rolodex, a client list worth over $500,000 in annual commissions. What Marcus didn't realize, and what he's currently learning the hard way while his new firm's bank account bleeds dry, is that you can steal a list of names, but you can't steal 40 years of loyalty. To understand why Marcus is currently staring at a mountain of debt and wondering why his phone hasn't rung in 3 weeks, I need to take you back to the beginning. I've spent 42 years in the industrial brokerage business. It's not flashy work. It's a lot of early mornings, greasy breakfasts and diners out by the shipyards, and handshakes that actually mean something. I built Miller & Associates from a single desk and a rented basement to the premier brokerage in the tri-state area. I worked double shifts for a decade, missing more than a few of my own kids' baseball games, all to ensure that when a client had a problem at 3 in the morning, I was the one who answered the phone. My wife Martha used to say I was building more than a business. I was building a family. And for a long time, I believed her. I treated my employees like kin. And when my sister's son Marcus graduated with his fancy MBA and nowhere to go, I didn't hesitate. I brought him in. I gave him a starting salary that was double what I made at 30, a company car, and the corner office right next to mine. I thought I was being a good uncle. I thought I was passing the torch. The first crock appeared about 6 months ago. We were sitting in the boardroom and I was explaining the importance of the annual appreciation dinner, a tradition I've kept for 30 years, where I host my top 20 clients and their spouses at a local steakhouse. No business talk, just friendship. Marcus rolled his eyes. He didn't even try to hide it. "Uncle Art," he said, tapping away on his tablet, "this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're spending $6,000 on ribeye and bourbon for a bunch of guys who are over 65. It's inefficient. We should be moving this budget into targeted LinkedIn ads and automated funneling. These friendships of yours aren't scalable." I remember looking at him, really looking at him, and seeing the entitlement. He didn't see people. He saw data points. I told him as calmly as I could, "Marcus, these guys are the reason you have a roof over your head. They don't care about funnels. They care that I was at their daughter's wedding and that I helped them find a lawyer when their brother died." He just smirked. "The world has moved on, Art. You're just holding on to the steering wheel of a parked car." If that had been the end of it, I might have just chalked it up to youthful arrogance. But then came the Sunday dinner at my sister's house. I was sitting there enjoying my coffee when I overheard Marcus talking to his mother in the kitchen. "The old man is losing his grip," he whispered, though not quietly enough. "He's got all that equity tied up in relationships that are basically prehistoric. He's sitting on a gold mine and doesn't know how to extract the value. Don't worry, Mom. I'm going to modernize things one way or another."
Something in me shifted that day. I've lived long enough to know when a storm is brewing, and I've never been one to wait for the roof to blow off before I start boarding up the windows. I didn't say a word to him. I finished my coffee, hugged my sister, and went home. But that night, I didn't go to sleep. I went into my home office and started making calls. Over the next 3 months, the disrespect didn't just pile up, it became a mountain. Marcus started accidentally forgetting to include me on email chains with my oldest clients. He started telling our office manager that I was stepping back and that all new inquiries should go through him. He even had the audacity to suggest I move into a smaller office down the hall to make room for a tech hub he wanted to build. The breaking point was a Tuesday in October. I walked into the office early, 5 a.m., my usual time, and found Marcus at my desk. He'd plugged an external drive into my computer. He jumped like he'd been shot when I flipped the light on. "Just backing up the server, Uncle Art," he stammered, his face turning a blotchy red. "You know, for security." I knew exactly what he was doing. He was downloading the master client list, the Master 500 as we called it. It contained every contact, every contract renewal date, every private cell phone number, and 40 years of personal notes I'd kept on the people who kept us in business. "Is that right?" I asked, walking over to the coffee pot. My heart was thudding, but my hands were steady. "Good thinking, Marcus. Security is important." I didn't confront him. I didn't fire him. I let him finish. I even let him think he'd outsmarted the old man for another 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, Marcus was walking around with a spring in his step, already looking at office spaces for his own firm. What he didn't know was that while he was busy downloading files, I was busy having lunch. I met with Bill Henderson, who owns the largest logistics fleet on the East Coast. We've played golf every Saturday for 20 years. I met with Sarah Jenkins, who runs a manufacturing empire and whose father started his business on a loan I personally guaranteed in 1985. I met with all of them, one by one. I told them the truth. I told my nephew was likely going to strike out on his own and that he'd be reaching out to them soon. I told him he was a smart kid, but he lacked the old school touch. And then I made a request, a very specific, very quiet request. When he calls, I told them, play along. Let him think he's got you. Let him send you the contracts. Just don't sign anything. The day Marcus quit was a theatrical masterpiece. He walked into my office at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday. He didn't sit down. He tossed a letter of resignation on my desk and leaned over, that smug smirk back in full force. I'm moving on, Art. I've launched Apex Solutions. And just so there's no confusion, I took the list, all 500 of them. I've already got meetings lined up with Henderson, Jenkins, and the O'Malley Group. By this time next month, your outdated methods will have you filing for bankruptcy. You should have retired when I told you to. I looked at the letter, then up at him. I didn't yell. I didn't get angry. I just nodded. You think you're ready for this, Marcus? It's a lot of responsibility taking care of these people. He laughed, a sharp, condescending sound. I'm not taking care of them, Uncle. I'm managing them. There's a difference. Enjoy the silence in here. It's going to get very quiet very fast. He walked out, and for a moment, it was quiet, but it wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of a trap being set.
Marcus spent the next month burning through his savings. He signed a 3-year lease on a gloss-walled office in the city's trendiest district. He hired 3 account managers in their 20s who spent more time on TikTok than on the phone. He bought a brand new Italian sports car to look the part. He spent nearly $200,000 of his own money and a significant loan from his mother before he'd even closed a single deal. He was relying on that $500K in commissions to hit on the first of the month. He'd sent out his modernized contracts to all my top clients, offering them a 5% discount if they switched to Apex Solutions. He thought it was a slam dunk. Then came the grand opening party. He invited the whole family, including me. I think he wanted me there to witness his coronation. He wanted to rub my nose in his success. The office was beautiful, cold, but beautiful. There was a DJ, expensive catering, and plenty of champagne. But as the night wore on, I noticed Marcus looked frantic. He was checking his phone every 30 seconds. He was cornering my sister in the kitchen, his voice rising in pitch. I don't understand, he was saying. Henderson said he'd have the signed contract back to me by Tuesday. Jenkins isn't returning my calls. None of them are. I walked over, swirling a glass of sparkling water. Everything okay, Marcus? You look a little stressed for a man who's about to become a millionaire. He turned on me, his eyes bloodshot. What did you do? Did you threaten them? Did you tell them you'd sue? I didn't do anything but tell them the truth, I said softly. I told them you were family, and I told them you were going to try to sell them a digital version of a relationship that took 40 years to build. I asked them to wait and see if you ever bothered to ask about their families or their businesses or the problems that keep them up at night. Tell me, Marcus, in all those automated emails you sent Sarah Jenkins, did you ever mention that her grandson was in the hospital last week? The color drained from his face. How would I know that? Because if you'd called her instead of sending a funnel link, she would have told you, I said. And because I was at the hospital on Wednesday bringing her coffee. That's the outdated method you laughed at. Just then, his phone buzzed. He snatched it up, hope flaring in his eyes for a split second before it died. It was an email from Bill Henderson. He'd CC'd me on it. Dear Marcus, the email read, I've reviewed your proposal. While the 5% discount is attractive, I've decided to stay with Miller & Associates. Arthur has been my friend for 30 years. He knows my business better than I do. More importantly, he's a man of his word. I don't know you, and based on how you've handled this transition, I don't think I want to. Please stop contacting my office. Marcus stared at the screen. Then he looked at the expensive office, the hired staff, and the champagne that suddenly tasted like vinegar. He realized then that he hadn't stolen a gold mine. He'd stolen a list of people who loved his uncle and had no use for a nephew who thought loyalty was a line item on a spreadsheet.
He tried to argue. He tried to claim I was interfering with trade. I just pulled a folded piece of paper out of my pocket. It was the non-solicitation agreement he'd signed when he first started working for me, the one he'd modernized himself 3 years ago when we updated the employee handbook. He'd been so focused on making it ironclad for everyone else that he'd forgotten it applied to him too. I'm not going to sue you, Marcus, and I meant it. I don't need to. The market is going to do that for me. You've got a 3-year lease and no revenue. You've burned your bridges with every major player in the city, and you've done it all before you even turned 30.
The aftermath was exactly as methodical as my plan. Marcus's firm folded in 90 days. He had to sell the car, and his mother, my sister, is still barely speaking to me because I won't bail him out. But I told her the same thing I told him. A man who doesn't respect his roots doesn't deserve the fruit. Marcus is working as a junior analyst for a firm 3 towns over now. He's back to being a data point, which I suppose is what he always wanted. My business, meanwhile, has never been better. My prehistoric clients were so offended by Marcus's move that they've gone out of their way to send me even more business. I'm sitting in my office now, the same mahogany desk Marcus once looked at with such pity. The phone rings. It's Bill Henderson. He doesn't want to talk about contracts or funnels. "Hey, Art," he says, "the grandkids are coming over for a barbecue this Sunday. Martha still make that potato salad? Bring a bowl and come on by." I smile, leaning back in my chair. "I'll be there, Bill. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Funny how that works. You can steal a list, but you can't steal a life. And in the end, the old man didn't have to lift a finger to win. I just had to wait for the world to show Marcus what a parked car really looks like when you don't have the keys to the engine. My business is built on handshakes, and my hand has never been stronger.